The women's division is not as good as it could be, and it's the fault of WWE. We've seen it through the example of Chelsea Green and others. There are really major problems, and people are fed up with wasting all this talent. So here's what I want to say to you. Join me in this kind of dialogue and form your own opinion.
You are on the Wrestling Paradise.
My strong opinion on the women's division, episode 2. Let's go.
Oh man, this is a tragedy for Chelsea.
Hold on tight, and if you haven't seen it, go check out episode 1, I want to say. 4. My opinion on the women's division, my strong opinion on it, including the case of Chelsea Green. I noticed several things that displeased me greatly, despite my love, admiration, and appreciation for certain things. I think of Chelsea Green, but not just her. I also like Bianca Belair and Tiffany. I think Nia Jax has potential. She is just not being used as she should be. I am also looking forward to seeing what an Alexa Bliss, for example, can do. I have also been a fan of Charlotte Flair and others for years, including Jade Cargill. In the more recent times, I would say, and that's why my problem is not with the wrestlers themselves, but much more with what the Federation does with them. The women's division is not interesting, but for bad reasons, and the solutions are also illogical, given that the solutions are merely the result of analyzing the problems. If this is wrong, the outcome will be wrong too. A domino effect. So, like when you say, I'm going to beat you. No, I'm the one who's going to beat you. That summarizes a verbal exchange in the women's division in 2024. Incorrect analysis, because it's not just in the women's division, but a writing problem across all divisions. Let's take the current Raw World Championship, the supreme title of the #1 show, after all. So, I'm going straight for what's supposed to be the best booked. What's the feud between Zayn and Gunther? I'm going to beat you. That's why you don't want to face me. You know I'm going to beat you if I confront you. No, you're just not on my level. I'm the one who's going to beat you. I just don't want to waste my time with someone so insignificant. I'm far better. Is this really the best we can offer for the world title of the #1 show? The line, I'm going to beat you, or no, I'm the one who will beat you, doesn't specifically summarize a women's segment, but rather 95% of WWE segments in general, and this has been the case for quite a few years. Here, another recent example, I will beat you, and I will be the last monster standing. No, it's me who will be the last monster standing. So it touches on the women's division, obviously. But it is in no way that it is solely specific to this division. It is a broader issue. So, then, the first point I will react to, there are way too many storylines, current and modern aspects of recent years in WWE, which are simply, as I call them, you can tell me if you find this term relevant, sporty. You know, I'm the best. No, I'm the best. Let's settle this in the ring. Blah, blah, blah. That's definitely poor. It's lame. I don't like it. It's sports, as I call it. Basically, there is no story at all. Nothing extra, no psychology, no depth, and no character. And it's certainly true that this is something you can basically apply and see in many other rivalries from recent years, unfortunately. But I will respond by saying there hasn't only been that elsewhere. It's true. For example, it is true that even though they are in the minority, storylines that have been more than just pure sports have existed, including in modern WWE. An example, of course. The first that comes to mind is everything concerning the bloodline for years, and that raises another question for me. Is it that, in reality, the care that is put into certain storylines is just not put elsewhere? So why do we find a certain level of care, a certain depth, a certain quality of writing, at least a minimum, even if it is not always exceptional, far from it, in everything surrounding, for example, Roman Reigns, or at least in many things that surround him, or even everything that also surrounds the bloodline in general, The Rock, Paul Heyman, and when Cody Rhodes was also linked to it, etc. What many fans also call scenes and storylines that are sometimes worthy of cinema. WWE is capable of it, and it has even done so recently. So why not put the same effort elsewhere? As you said, I agree with you that the rivalry in autumn 2024 between Gunther and Sami Zayn is quite poor. So I found that despite all that, there was still a bit more depth and a bit more development. When Gunther explained that his father came to see him at WrestleMania 40, that his loss to Zayn was the shame of his life, and that, clearly, it was something that haunted him, something he still thought about today. Sami Zayn, in a way, represented his nemesis, and I found that this aspect brought a more interesting dimension to the simple, yes, no, I'm better than you, and you don't want to face me because you're scared, blah, blah, blah. If that's all there is, I agree. With you, it's pointless, it leads nowhere, it's empty, and I agree with that. So, does WWE avoid this trap for Gunther against Zayn? Not entirely. As you say, it has still been the substance of this rivalry for too long. But on the other hand, I want to tell you, all of this clearly shows that sometimes they can still do better than this. And what is certain, unfortunately, is that while there are some situations and rivalries where we have seen more effort in writing and creativity, in the women's division, I have to say, it's not the case. These efforts are never found. This is true for both the men's division and the most important rivalries. Basically, everything that often concerns the main title, everything surrounding the bloodline, you can feel that it is taken seriously. You can still feel that, even though there has been, at times, some filler, some repetition, and some heaviness, it's true. But overall, I would say that there is still some care. Why? Basically, is there care for what is really important, and not, for example, the same care in the women's division. In reality, you find that this problem of poor writing does not apply only to the women's division. It's true, we also see it elsewhere. But what is certain is that you will never find the richness of writing in the women's division, while there are still some male rivalries where you do find it. So, well, in both cases, the conclusion is still pretty bad. It just highlights the fact that in the women's division, there are no creative efforts being made, and on that, I think we can all agree. Next, we move on. Problem number 1, in your opinion. The tag titles? Let's burn them. Good riddance. There has never been a team in the women's division, and there never will be. The truth, it's that WWE has considered the men's tag division as a second-rate thing, unimportant for over 20 years. When you say that we've gone from real teams like the Hardys, the Dudley Boys, the Harts, to pairings of 2 solo guys without any direction, just because WWE had no plan for them, like Orton and Edge, Jericho and Big Show, Kane and Bryan, Theory and Waller, Priest and Baylor and JD, even if there have also been some good moments at times. I'm not saying that it's always terrible, but overall, regarding the tag team division, I agree that given the way WWE presents it currently, frankly, it's very hard. It's very hard to be interested in her. After that, the problem comes more, as you said, from the way the company considers and treats them and presents them rather than the performers themselves, obviously. Well, it's true that sometimes there are pairings, as you said, between 2 guys that can be good, can be funny, and can be entertaining. Sometimes they also come out of nowhere, and it's clearly just filler. For example, I agree with you. But regarding Austin Theory and Grissom Waller, that's clearly the idea. Yes, we don't really know what to do with them individually. We just need to put them together. In the meantime, it's somewhat the division waiting for the solo push. We could rename the men's tag division like that. Waiting for the solo push or just filling in the hours that need to be filled. So, regarding WWE, it has also considered the women's division as a second-rate thing for a good 15 years. The most recent good feud in the women's division goes back to Trish against Mickie. And by the way, I'm glad you mentioned this rivalry. This rivalry might be the last one. And it's crazy to think about that because it's been almost 20 years, the last female at least. It was somewhat pushed with a minimum of psychology. Basically, the situation, to summarize for those who might not know this story, is that you had Mickie James playing a sort of hysterical fan, but much more than that in reality. Both in love, but also possessive and psychopathic towards Trish Stratus. And it was a bit like a fan story. Or even of disciples who have a very toxic relationship with their idol or master. And it was very interesting. It was very interesting. There were some very striking scenes where Mickie James even kidnapped Ashley. It was, sometimes, very well acted. You felt that there was a story, it was telling something, and unfortunately, it's still sad to realize, if you take a step back on, the storylines in the women's division have been so poor. that we can't think of any examples unless they have been good matches. For example, I have in mind WrestleMania 39, where there was indeed the rivalry between Rhea Ripley and Charlotte Flair, which was quite significant. It was not just an ordinary match. It was intense, it was still interesting to watch, and in the best case scenario, in the WWE Women's Division, you have two rather credible and serious competitors facing off, offering us a match filled with suspense and spectacle. But once again, it's purely competitive and purely athletic. There's no storyline. In any case, you continue by saying to create tag titles in the women's division. So, it's doing something of second-rate quality within something else of second-rate quality. It's basically completely useless, a total defeat, overall uselessness. Then you say, here is the attention that WWE will give her. I have said it since day one. There, I feel that this is frustrating you in any case, this situation around the tag team title, basically. These titles should not have been created without surprise. I was right. Burning the tag titles for good is therefore the top priority. Let's get rid of this subdivision of a subdivision. Yes, honestly, how can anyone disagree? It is true that I lament the fact that there are almost no female wrestlers in WWE in 2024 who are not part of a team, whatever it may be. There are so many names that want. Honestly, some names and teams evoke nothing. So much so that they are insignificant, unfortunately, because of the treatment they receive. I'm thinking of Pure Fusion Collective, Unholy Union, Damage Control. Well, one could say that Bianca Belair and Jade Cargill may be less so, but even they shouldn't be a team. They should be solo competitors. In short. So, you say that you would advocate for completely eliminating this tag team division. And I want to tell you, frankly, let's go ahead and burn it because it brings nothing. It is of no use. I agree. On the contrary, she is just filler for the shows. She brings everyone down. Some deserve better, while others do not belong in a main roster show. And it only exists through a team that gives them airtime, I want to say. But wrongly? Wrongly? Because for me, we will come back to this later with the names you mentioned. Some clearly do not yet have. Perhaps they still need to progress. The stature, the aura, the charisma, the character to truly deserve a place on television. After all, television is part of an international broadcast. In any case, another issue. Clearly, the women's tag team division serves no purpose. It should be eliminated, and that would only do good. Yes, I agree with you that, fundamentally, there is a poverty of writing in the women's division. A big lack of effort. The question now is whether this is a significant lack of overall effort beyond the women, or if it is WWE that clearly does not take its women's division seriously at all, since she is making efforts elsewhere as well, but generally for Roman Reigns, Cody Rhodes, and others. In any case, you continue by saying, problem number 2, too many female wrestlers for not enough space, which causes the creation of uninteresting groups, just to try to fit as many of them as possible into the show, but this greatly comes at the expense of quality. Totally agree. Honestly, how can one not agree on that too? It's true, but where I would say my reaction to this is, and where I might disagree a bit, hopefully this is what will happen, is that Raw, maybe also in any case, by fall 2024, has been shortened, and maybe also by the time it's on Netflix, it might be the norm now to have a 2-hour Raw, which leaves fewer slots to fill. At least, what no longer obliges, what would no longer obligate, the company to fill the time, knowing that when a show lasts 3 hours, it's clear that we can understand why there are many female wrestlers who are just there to fill space, because there was a need to fill the time slot. But if things are shorter, there's no longer a slot to fill, and that's good. Otherwise, you mention not counting those absent due to injury or maternity, Alexa Bliss, Asuka, Charlotte Flair, Dakota, and Valhalla. There are 15 on SmackDown and 20 on Raw. When have we seen so many female wrestlers participate in a show? Spoiler, never. 35 in total, 42 if they were all active, which clearly shows that there are far too many for the little time they have each week. I find that it's also the same story, somewhat in the men's division. Basically, there are plenty of them. We give them spots, we let them come into the main restaurant, we let them have fun, we offer them a bit of airtime, which will unfortunately never lead to anything. For many, sadly. In any case, for some, we have increasingly moved towards a philosophy in WWE where we want to somehow please everyone, where we want to give airtime, matches, appearances, even if they have no value, no flavor, and no substance to everyone. It's a bit like a year-end show when you're in school, where all the students have to have a part in the show, and no matter what, everyone is included, even if some of them are completely unqualified and shouldn't be there. It's true, it's true, it's true. Just like I can also tell you, and just like there are others who deserve much more recognition. In short, I agree with the observation that the roster is too large, and this is also true for the men in WWE. And I also feel that there is almost a global mentality in wrestling today, where there is a bit of a search for an abundance of wrestlers, to have plenty, to constantly recruit new ones, so that they become So, in America, they have an expression that I love, the flavor of the month. Basically, the hype of the moment leads to recruiting many people just to be the hype of the moment, only for it to ultimately mean nothing and lose all interest after a month or two. This is very often what happens. And I want to tell you, it's a bit of the problem with this global culture of instantaneity, of wanting everything right away, where we forget everything very quickly, where it's the culture, it's the society of the ephemeral, etc. These are broader issues, I want to tell you, but well, we agree on this observation, and you propose several solutions. You say, solution 1, the simplest and quickest, is a massive layoff. You mentioned that we could fire about 10 people and there would be no sense of emptiness or lack, guaranteed. Absolutely agree. We need to let people go. We need to cut back on the staff. It's true. Perhaps the reason they keep so many wrestlers under contract is because there are so many. Well, my theory would be that, first of all, there are so many shows. You have Raw, SmackDown, but let's not forget that in your NXT, some of them make appearances. You have Speed. On X, your main event too, it's not just about Raw and SmackDown. You say the reaction is always crickets, and that's normal. It's hard to care about a female wrestler that the audience knows little about, who only competes once every 6 months and always to lose. Yes, I agree. What's the point of having a female wrestler compete once in a while? Even less so if it's to lose. How can we care about them? I would respond to you. So you advocate for them to have a show, just for them, where they can all exist. I would advocate for more? No. We keep the best who truly have potential and focus on developing characters and stories for each of them because they are sorely lacking. But anyway, we continue. The idea is to create an entire show featuring the female mid-card. On the other hand, I want to tell you, I don't know who is going to watch. Then again, maybe there are. So, the big question is there an audience? Are there viewers who would go? Because let's not forget that putting on a show is an investment for WWE. Does WWE not prefer that main event, for example, mainly remains reruns? Or would she perhaps indeed be willing to make the effort? Why invest in all this women's mid-card, considering it might be a show that no one will watch? Real question, real debate. In any case, you advocate that they should have airtime every week, have feuds that the public can learn to know them, so that there is something for the audience to care about. Yes, but I want to tell you, the goal, the definition you give, the mission you assign to this show is supposed to be the role of NXT. That's true. In any case, in NXT, you are supposed to present both men and women to the audience. Well, the big question is who always misses out in WWE? It's when these stars, or rather these wrestlers, arrive at the main roster. They assume that you know them, but if you don't watch NXT, you don't know them. But normally, in the greatest eras, I think you know this well, since you seem to be quite passionate and knowledgeable, that in the best times, in my opinion, of WWE, it was not at all a problem to learn how to make wrestlers known so that we would care about them. How? Vignettes, stories, promos, and well-optimized airtime. Rather than matches galore, or disappearing from the screen for weeks. It's true. After a while, you say that by seeing them often, some will gain popularity, and then that's when we send them to the main roster. Yes, but I want to tell you, people would still need to watch main event. It's true, you can very well prove it, NXT, hype it up over there. But if no one is watching, among the viewers who are watching, for example, those who will watch Netflix on Netflix with probably a part of new viewers discovering it, they will have no idea about these 4 main event things you see. Then you say, they will now have reactions and a real chance to get reactions, and who knows, maybe a reign on the main roster one day. In any case, the audience, knowing them better, will be more interested. Positive impact on the ratings, yes, but perhaps he will not experience it, despite having had their place in the main event. That's true. Eventually, there could be merchandise sales possible, or a stronger focus on the existing ones, leading to more revenue for the Federation. You say, yes, the virtuous circle? Basically, I would agree with you, but only on the condition that people watch and follow main event, or else follow the show. 100% female mid-card? It's true, it's not easy though. Still, we need to make it appealing so that they want to watch. It's true, apart from the fans, maybe the most hardcore ones who would watch, let's say, all the content and all the shows, no matter what happens. Honestly, we still have to. Anyway, today, you tell me, for example, hey, would you be interested in watching a 100% female show from mid-card? I would say, well, I'm willing to give it a try, but it will have to be really good for me to stick around. After all, it seems too complicated to understand for WWE. As a result, we have what we currently have. And the worst part is that, in my opinion, it's not going to change anytime soon. You're right. We don't see the slightest promise of change anywhere. Especially since this has been the way of doing things for years. Which is, can you realize how paradoxical it is that we are presented with a lot of fuss about the women's revolution, saying yes, today female wrestlers are important, blah blah blah. They receive the same treatment as men. Yet paradoxically, during that time, there are hardly any interesting storylines. And finally, the 4 things may have been more interesting at a time when they were treated as truly absolute secondary roles. So it might be a bit shocking, what I'm about to say, but you yourself mentioned it for Trish Stratus and Mickie James. They were more interesting. At least it seems there was more effort put into them back then. Only 4 current female wrestlers, and yet there had not been the so-called women's revolution. So, this is where one might wonder, is all of this just smoke and mirrors of a women's revolution? And in reality, does it hide an increasing laziness among WWE officials towards women under the guise of a great revolution and sometimes a super match, blah blah blah? Isn't it true that in reality there are fewer and fewer efforts in writing and production for her? You say later, note on Chelsea, I adore her. Anyone following her career outside WWE knows her capabilities. Her match against Pentagon Dark in Lucha Underground changed my nights forever. It left a mark on you and shows how well she can really play very different characters. For now, I agree that Chelsea Green has real big potential. So you were saying next, to be hyper credible, a real badass, far superior to Rhea in every way. Only Zoe could match her in a hardcore match. I want to tell you, give them, WWE, the chance to exist in the main roster in that regard. It's true, I want to see Zoe Stark and Chelsea Green being treated with the respect they deserve on the main roster and to have good rivalries. Also, give me your opinion in the comments about what you think. In any case, feel free to share your thoughts as well. I might respond to it in a video as well. No problem. If it speaks to me and I feel like reacting to it, don't hesitate. It brings life to the channel and it's great. We share debates, we share passion. It helps me a lot as well. So thank you very much for that. Don't hesitate to do it. And then let's see if the solutions we discussed together in this video will be implemented one day. We will closely follow this in the coming years.